call this regular meeting of the New Ulm Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, June 12th, 2018 at 8 a.m. to order. Heather, would you do roll call, please?
Sure. Commissioner Brum?
Present.
Commissioner Yanni?
Present.
Commissioner Schultz?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz? Absent. President Schmitz? Absent. And Vice President Fix?
Present. All right, we'll go on to item number, thank you, Heather. We'll go on to item number 2, approval of the minutes.
I'll offer a motion to approve. Second.
Any questions, concerns? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion's approved. Let's go on to item number 3, the administrative, EDA administration from the EDA staff regarding administrative activities during the month of May 2018. Heather?
All right. And we'll start with the Section 8 program. Note, we have 87 vouchers on the program for the month of May. Housing assistance payments to landlords exceeded disbursements from HUD by just over $1,800. Administrative fee program expenses exceeded disbursements by $753. Note the unaudited balances on pages 3 and 4 of your report. And on page 5, note 87 vouchers on the program as of June 1st and a waiting list of 66. Also just wanted to report that we have submitted an application to HUD for additional set-aside funding under Category 2B Portability. The application deadline is June 29th, 2018, so that has been submitted prior to the deadline. We have applied for and received this funding in the past, and if funding is received, it is to help offset the cost of participants who have ported out of Brown County, Minnesota to higher cost areas. If there's no questions, we'll move on to the public housing report. As of May 31st, program expenditures have exceeded revenues by just under $21,000 as of May 31st. Note on page 8 of your report, Broadway House is fully leased with 55 on the waiting list. And on page 9, the family units are fully leased with 30 on the waiting list. Just wanted to report that on May 18th, 2018, HUD issued a notice stating that on May 8th, 2018, the President notified Congress that he is proposing rescissions to prior year appropriations, including HUD's 2015, 2016, and 2017 unobligated balances in the Public Housing Capital Fund. Congress has 45 days to review and act on the proposed rescissions through legislation. If after 45 days Congress does not act, the funds become available for HUD to obligate. The New Ulm EDA currently has closed out our 2015 and 2016 grants, so those years don't affect us, but we do have an unobligated balance of $46,373.59 left in our 2017 grant. So if Congress should decide to take that money back, that's the amount we would give back to the Treasury. On another note, HUD notified us of our 2018 Capital Fund Program grant award in the amount of $94,026. These funds are not affected by the President's proposal and are available to be utilized for projects.
Heather, maybe explain why we would have a 2017 grant balance yet. How many years do you have to expend those funds typically in the past?
When we receive the grant, we have 2 years to obligate the money, and then we have another 2 years to spend the money. So it's not uncommon to have balances carry over for a couple years. In order to obligate the funds, we have to have gone out for bids on a project and entered into a contract. And so we haven't done that yet for these remaining funds. We are looking at our projects for this construction season. And now that our 2018 grant is available, I probably will come to you next month with a project for converting the Broadway House common area lights over to LED. because we do have our 2018 grant available. I was kind of waiting because I didn't know what was going to happen with our 2017 money, but then I did receive notice that our 2018 grant is available. And this is the largest grant I've seen in my 10 years. It's usually around $50,000 to $60,000. So I find it strange that they're looking at taking money back from a prior year, but then they give us this big new grant, so doesn't make sense, but
Has this been a common practice in the past for them to come back and ask for the money back?
I've not seen this happen
Okay.
before, so.
So we would have no idea if this would be something they would consider going forward in the future then as well? Okay. Who knows?
Who
It's-
knows?
Yeah, okay.
But if the money's spent, it's spent, right? And they're not going to ask for it back.
Right, so our 2015 and 16 grants, that money's been obligated, spent, those grants are closed out. So those years will not be affected. It's only the unobligated 2017 money that they could take back.
Okay.
I would assume too that there's not enough of time for us to go out and seek bids and spend any of the 2017 money if we found a reason to do so.
We actually wouldn't be able to do that. HUD would not be able to obligate it. It's
Okay.
kind of frozen until this 45 days
Gotcha.
passes. And then if Congress doesn't act, they would be able to allow us to obligate that money. So we're just kind of in a holding pattern until they decide what they're going to do.
So at this point, it's best probably just to think about the 2018 allocation and use that for any projects.
Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions on public housing, we can move on to the EDA report on page 10. Note cash assets of just under $676,000. The property rehabilitation loan program report is on page 11 and 12 of your report. We have available funds of $266,000. We do have 3 applications pending, one for a limited loan, which is up to $5,000, and 2 commercial rehab loan applications are pending, and those are both below the $25,000, so they wouldn't need to come to the board for approval. Moving on to the rental property fund on page 13, just over $81,000 available there in cash. And moving on to the Garden Terrace report, Garden Terrace has 87 units leased with 50 on the waiting list. Garden Terrace currently has 1 vacancy. They had no turnovers last month. They do have 1 move-out notice pending for July.
Maybe just for your conversation at this point in time, you know, we had anticipated that the Garden Terrace cash would be utilized for programming, you know, and as soon as we identify, you know, what those programming activities might be, whether it's home rehab or, you know, whatever it may be, you know, it could possibly even be partnering with the city on buying the remaining EDC lots. You know, I mean, it's just whatever. So we've got a fairly healthy balance right at this point in time. So that then opens up, you know, opportunity for the EDA to become more active in areas that it may be interested in participating in, whether it's economic development or revolving loan programs or.
Item 6.
What's that?
Item 6.
Yep.
All right. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the report.
A second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Let's move on to item number 4A on the agenda. Consider resolution approving the public housing operating budget.
All right. The public housing operating budget covers the day-to-day operations of the 50 public housing units that are owned and operated by the EDA. We have 40 units at the Broadway House Apartments and 10 family unit rental houses that are scattered throughout the city. We need to submit the operating budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019 to HUD prior to the beginning of the fiscal year, so that needs to be submitted by the end of June. We work with our fee accountancy neighbor to prepare the budget into the required HUD format. Taking a look at the budget for the upcoming year, it's basically a status quo budget compared to the current budget year. You can see I've kind of outlined in the different areas, comparing it to the current budget year, operating receipts, or that would be our rent collections, budgeting about a 1% increase compared to the current budget. Operating expenditures, it looks like about a 2% increase. That includes a potential salary adjustment of 2.5% based on cost of living projection, and that would be effective January 1st, 2019. Of course, that depends on what the city council decides when they're doing their budgeting. Tenant services maintain at current budget level. We're just required to put $25 per unit into that account, so that's $1,000 every year unless HUD changes the formula. Utilities, looking at a 2.5% increase compared to the current budget. I think you've all noticed probably on your utility bills that they were a little higher this last winter. So we're budgeting for that for the upcoming year. Ordinary maintenance and operation, looking at about a 6% decrease there. Note that the potential salary increase for the maintenance technician is factored in there again at a 2.5% cost of living adjustment effective January 1st. General expense, looking at about a 4% increase for the next year. Routine expense is maintained at the current budget level. The operating subsidy is what we anticipate the HUD operating grant for the upcoming year to be. Residual receipts, we are looking at operating under a deficit again for the upcoming fiscal year. The current budget projected an operating deficit of just under $35,000. As of the end of May, we have about a $20,000 deficit for the fiscal year, so we'll see next month how we end the year. But it's a little better than what we projected. We're budgeting about $21,000 deficit for the upcoming year as well. And this is not unusual. This is something housing authorities all over are seeing, which we didn't usually see when we did our budget, but they are prorating our operating subsidy. So we are getting less from the federal government to subsidize this program. And also the Social Security increases have been rather stagnant. Medicare premiums increased, so tenants' net pay has actually gone down. So what we are collecting for rent has also gone down as a result. So basically, we're operating in a deficit because our revenues have gone down, but our expenses don't. Are there any questions on any of those items?
Not hearing any, Madam Chair, I'll offer a resolution which will require a roll call, and I'll waive the reading of this request.
I'll second.
All right, Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Right, Commissioner Braun,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
and Vice President Fix.
Yes. All right.
Motion carries?
Oh, yeah, motion carries. Thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I appreciate your help. All right, let's move on to item on the agenda 4B, consider motion authorizing payment of the public housing program claims.
Anything standing out, Heather, that we should be?
I'll just note again that we did have a higher than normal number of unit turnovers, and so we're still seeing some bills coming in on the claims reflected or based on those turnovers. So a little higher than normal, but then that should go back to normal next month.
Are you changing, or is there changing of locks, or their service calls for a locksmith for 5 different times?
A couple of those were just locks that needed to be replaced.
Okay.
I think one was a patio door lock, and it just wasn't functioning, so we had to replace that. Some are due to turnover. We do change the locks when someone moves out,
Okay,
have it rekeyed so that, just for security.
makes sense.
I'll move the claims.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Item 5, consider bids for 2 lots in Milford Heights Phase 1. Heather?
The EDA authorized staff to solicit bids for the 9 unsold lots in Milford Heights Phase 1. 2 bids were received, so I've split those into 2 motions so we can handle them separately. So the first motion you have before you is to approve or reject a bid for Lot 7, Block 4, in the amount of $12,103. So the minimum bid on that lot was $12,000. So the bid received is above the minimum. The declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions require home construction to be completed within 18 months of the lot purchase. If the home is not completed within this designated time frame, the purchase agreement for the lot will indicate that the lot will revert back to the EDA. The bidder is requesting an extension to the requirement from 18 months from the lot purchase to 3 years from the lot purchase, just to give them more time to, do the home construction. Staff is recommending granting the bidder's request to have 3 years from the lot purchase to complete their home and approving the bid as submitted. We have allowed extensions on the time frame for the home build in the past when Habitat for Humanity purchased 2 of our lots because of their need to do fundraising between builds. They were granted additional time, so we have set the precedent, and we have done that before on prior lot sales, so we don't see any problem approving that request on this lot. Any questions or discussion on that?
Heather, did we get any requests for any full purchase of all 9 lots?
We only received these 2 bids.
Just these 2? All right, just curious.
So do we want to go on with item number 2 of that, or do you want to take the
Take one
motion and
at
go
a
with it
time,
one at a
probably.
time? Let's go then. With any other questions with regard to the first motion? Or not motion yet?
Is
Would
there
someone
any-
like to make a motion?
I have a question first.
Okay, let's have that.
What ramifications do we have by not allowing this extension? Well, we don't get the bid, but other than that, just so we wanted the lots developed, right?
Yeah, I did note under budgetary fiscal issues that
Right.
Milford Heights Phase 1 is a TIF district. Once a house is constructed, the EDA collects property taxes to make payments to the TIF district. The EDA collects no property tax revenue on an empty lot.
Oh, okay.
So the sooner the home is built and goes on
Oh.
the tax rolls, the longer we have to collect until that TIF district expires.
Right, and so delaying would, in essence, shorten that time period for the potential of collecting any TIF funding.
Correct, for an additional 18 months.
Does the, who takes care of the lawn upkeep and snow removal and things like that now? Does the city do that?
Park and Rec,
Do they?
mhm,
So if that was sold, that would no longer have to be their obligation.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's about 15 years left on the tax increment financing district, so it's a 25-year district. We're basically 10 years into it.
So if we were to approve these 2 lot sales today, would it make sense to turn around and do what we did 3 months ago and put the last 7 back out for bids again? Or do we want to come up with a different concept? Maybe we want to deal with these bids first, but, yeah. I think we need to sell them. I'm going to offer a motion for item number 1, to approve the bid for Lot 7, Lot 4, on a $12,103. So,
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
We need-
Oops, I'm sorry.
I'm
Does
sorry.
sale need to be a resolution? Just to be on the safe side. why
Yeah,
don't
the
we do a
sale of
resolution?
land, yeah.
Probably
For
wouldn't
some
hurt.
reason, I have this
Oh.
idea that the sale needs
I'll-
to be a resolution.
amend my motion to make it a resolution. Your second.
Your second, would
With,
you?
yeah, and I'll second.
Okay. Then, turn into a resolution. Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Right, Commissioner Brum,
Yes.
Commissioner Yanni,
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz,
Yes.
and Vice President Fix.
Yes.
I'll
The
move
motion
right-
approved.
oh, sorry. I'll move right ahead on item number 2 and offer a motion to approve Lot 2, Block 4, in the amount of $13,247.63.
With
With the conditions.
the condition.
Thank you.
That it be removed, yep.
So you're agreeing that they do not have to build a house on that lot,
Yes.
Definitely, right?
right?
What's that?
Indefinitely.
So there will be no property tax collection.
We have, well, according to this, if we don't do this, they're withdrawing.
Well,
them.
there would be property tax collection because it'd be in private hands at that point, and the EDA wouldn't own them. But
Okay.
it would just be the taxes on a bare lot.
Right.
So it'd be minimal taxes.
And no TIF collection because of the TIF is collected on the appreciative value, right, between, it's,
Well, since it's not,
or minimal, I
I don't think we're,
suppose.
are we paying taxes on it now?
Yes.
No.
Or, no, not on that one?
Okay, so if it goes up to $12,000 value, we'll get taxes on $12,000, that increment. So
Which
it's
is
gonna be
considerably
minimal.
less than having a house on it, I guess
Oh,
is what
yeah.
I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, maybe we're sitting there talking about $400 versus $2,000 or, you know.
And this is the first instance that we've got a person that's come forward to purchase a lot with no intentions of ever building. This would be precedent setting for us.
It would be, and people have inquired, other people that have purchased homes up there have inquired in the past about, can I buy the lot next to me to have, you know, a bigger yard? And I've said, well, the covenants don't allow that. So they've been told in the past, not that we have to move forward based on what's happened in the past, but there may be some disgruntled homeowners now that the lot next to them is no longer available, someone's built on it. They were told they couldn't purchase it, and because if they don't build a house in 18 months, the land goes back to the EDA because of the covenants.
Right.
Um,
Is that the plan on this lot?
I would assume so because they're asking to be exempt from that requirement, that they're just wanting more land.
Yeah, it says if they cannot be exempted from this requirement, they will withdraw their bid.
Well, what do the rest of you think?
I do like the fact that there are homeowners who want a little bit of land more, and they may purchase it. This is a really good price for a piece of property if you're next to it, to just have that little extra.
Playground or?
Yes, yeah,
Lawn.
yeah, and I think of a playground, I think of the kids, I think of something, you know, so, but to just, yeah.
Many
So-
times, if you can see this throughout the community where somebody bought a lot next to them when it was available, no home on it. And maybe during their lifetime, it stays that way, but the next owner may split that off.
They sell it, yeah.
And, you know, because they're saying, we don't need an extra lot, and they split it off. So my belief is, you know, for a period of time, if that was the case, that it was just gonna be an extra lot, it may be that way for a period of time, but through time, you see those properties with a bare lot next to them, eventually, a house gets built. Doesn't guarantee that but eventually, from my perspective here in New Ulm, I've seen it in the diocese where somebody owned this lot, and then they bought the next lot, and then 10 years down the road, all of a sudden that lot is for sale. You know, so,
I would just say if the EDA is going to allow this, we may have some of the other homeowners up there that have an empty lot next to them want to buy that lot, and then that's going to be just less homes built.
That's the
You know,
negative,
that's
is
up
we're
to
trying to
you.
do a development and we won't have as much
I
development.
mean, if you set this precedent, you're opening it up for other people to come in and do the same.
Well, a concern I have is that up to this point, we've always adhered to the covenants when it's come to the adjoining lots. And this would set a precedent, and then those other folks, because you said there's been interest in the past of other homeowners wanting to do this very thing, and we've not allowed that to happen. At the very least, if we were to at least consider this option at this time, I would say we should go back and maybe make it permissible to all existing homeowners, if they have an interest in purchasing an adjoining lot, to give them the opportunity to perhaps bid on it, because they may not have known that we would even be considering this at this point. I guess that's my thought on it. I know the lots were small to start with, and I can completely understand a homeowner's desire to have a little more elbow room. And you know, we kind of got, at the time, I don't want to say roped into, but kind of, we were sold on the concept of the smart neighborhoods and the affordable housing, and at the time, they were talking reducing the lot sizes and the land size would make it more affordable because you don't have as much cost rolled up in the land acquisition. But here we are so many years out, and we're not seeing the type of production and the type of development we would have hoped. So maybe this should be something we could consider. And I don't know, what if two adjoining neighbors want to buy a lot in between them and split it? Are we going to allow something like that to happen? You know, that's a planning and zoning question. And would they be allowed to do something like that? So it kind of opens the door up. And it might be ultimately the best course of action to kind of complete the development up there to allow this to happen, just to give the homeowners more room if that's what they desire. But I think we want to be careful if we allow this to happen, to kind of make it available to anybody who would wish to participate in that activity, just in a sense of fairness.
in order to carry that thought forward, when the EDA was the majority stakeholder in the land ownership, we could kind of change our covenants at will because we were 51% of the vote. We're not 51% of the vote anymore, and it would actually require, voting by all the property owners that are there in order to change it. So even if we wanted to change it and pursue that concept of allowing lots to be sold without an intention to build a house on it, it would need to go through
All the property owners.
all the property owners, and it may not pass.
Yeah, and maybe that's our best approach, is to table this for now, but make contact with the property owners in phase one and say, hey, what do you guys think about this possibility, and to see where their level of interest is. I mean, we sold the whole development on this tight-knit type community with the porches and the smaller lot sizes to build that kind of a flavor and feel for that neighborhood. And there very well may be the majority of the property owners that still feel that way, and we certainly want to, if that's what their sentiments are, give them that opportunity to consider that. So, and again, they might think totally opposite. They might all be saying, no, I'd love a lot or a half lot or something to give myself a little more space.
Well, it looks like it would affect 9 property owners from the map. I did my math right. But if those 9 are interested, I'm okay with that, I guess, to find out more about what the interest is from the folks. So I'll withdraw my motion and offer a motion to table this to next month. A month, would that be enough time, Heather, or 2 months?
Yeah, we'll have to talk to the city attorney on the process to
I'll just offer a motion to table
survey.
it then,
Yeah, I would say table it.
if you're okay with that. That's my third time, isn't it? It's my last time.
Do you need a second on that?
Oh,
Yeah, we
did
need-
you, did
he
you
needs-
Is this a
resecond it?
resolution, though, to table it, or not?
No.
No, it's not. Okay.
No.
Yeah, I would second the motion to table it at this time. And again, I think, an excellent point, Brian. We're not the majority property owner, so we really,
Yeah.
and even if we weren't, I think it'd be just good common sense to get the involvement of the neighborhood, just to make sure that hopefully everyone's on the same page one way or the other about that. But just to kind of get what their thoughts and feelings are on it, so we can move forward and make everybody a stakeholder in the process.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is approved and tabled. Moving on to item number 6. Discussion on use of Garden Terrace Reserve funds. Sounds like fun.
So this was requested to be put on the agenda for further discussion this month. Just give you an overview, the EDA has paid early the mortgages for both buildings at Garden Terrace. Garden Terrace 1 in 2013 and Garden Terrace 2 in 2015. Since that time, the reserve account has grown to a significant amount, and the EDA has talked about potentially using a portion of the cash reserves to fund other EDA projects. Staff would like to propose a few ideas for consideration. Chris and I had talked about possibly a down payment program for Garden Terrace tenants to transition to home ownership, which Chris can expand on, but the idea is a portion of the rent they pay would go into a savings account, and at the time they move out, if they're purchasing a home, they could use that toward their down payment. It would be capped at an amount, the EDA would determine the parameters if they decided to go with that option, up to $5,000 or whatever that number might be. Another option would be owner-occupied rehab. We have applied to the Federal Home Loan Bank for a grant for an owner-occupied rehab program. If we don't receive that grant funding, the EDA might decide to self-fund and could utilize Garden Terrace reserves to self-fund a pilot program. Another option is a rental rehab program for landlords that want to improve their rental properties. There are grant funds available for that, but it's had a requirement that, what's the percentage? 20% have to be a low-income renter. Well, if they only have 2 units, basically one renter, or if they only have 1 unit, the renter would have to be a low-income unit. If we used Garden Terrace funds, those restrictions would not apply. So it would be a little easier for landlords to utilize without having to worry about those income restrictions. As Brian mentioned, possibly, this isn't on the list, but possibly partnering with the city to purchase lots up in the industrial park from the New Ulm EDC. Or you may have other ideas you'd like to suggest. I guess we'll have the discussion, get some direction, and come back with an actual action item in the future. So today it's just a discussion item, no action will be taken. Another note just under budgetary, the EDA may want to consider a minimum amount to keep in cash reserves for Garden Terrace, and Nicole might have some ideas there on what a good minimum number would be, 6 months of operating, or there might be some kind of benchmark financially that.
Yeah, I would recommend we keep at least 50% of a normal year's expenses in that minimum. So somewhere between the 300 and 350, I think would be a healthy minimum balance.
Well, I know it's been a long time coming, but this is what we've been talking about for over 2 years, 3 years, to move on and do some different things in our community. And item number 1, I guess my thought was more folks move into Garden Terrace from their homes. Would I be wrong on that?
We're starting to see some younger tenants moving
you?
into
Okay.
Garden Terrace, and there have been several over the past year or two that have moved out and purchased a home. So that is, the demographics are starting to
changing a little
change
bit?
there.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that, in looking at the wider picture with housing, I think one of the main points we're trying to emphasize is to establish and maintain workforce housing. And to offer this sort of an incentive program might make it more attractive when a worker is coming to town and they're not quite ready to buy. And this would offer an alternative for them to consider renting with the eventual, opportunity to purchase a home. My question would be, and maybe it's too premature, but if we were to consider something like this, is there a way we could make it retroactive, that we could offer it to current tenants and look at it retroactively, and formulating based on the rents they've paid and the time they've been there? Or would that complicate things too much? Or should we start fresh with a certain point and then simply going forward from there?
To me, that'd be something that the commission would decide. When I've seen this work in the last place I was renting at, it was anytime anyone signed up, you were automatically enrolled in the program. It was about 20% of your rent went into the savings account, and it doesn't cost the apartment complex anything because I paid into it. I paid my monthly rent. Portion that went in the savings account. And since I moved outside of the state, I didn't get to use that fund because I had to buy a home through certain developers, and then that would be used towards that. And we can kind of do the same thing here, where you pay into this, and if you buy a home in New Ulm, you get that money. If you choose to move somewhere else, you don't get to use that money. You can decide what those parameters are. And initially it doesn't cost the city anything because you're still just collecting rent on a monthly basis, and then it's until someone decides they want to move out and into a home that you would have that fund available.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. So it really, if we were to look at it in one sense, it would not have any immediate impact on our current reserve funds. But we would have to consider going forward that alongside of other potential programs to make sure we're properly funded and we keep our reserves intact. So,
One of the concerns, though, is that we have, right now, as of today, 50 people on the waiting list just to get in, for just a normal person who wants to rent. Now we add that covenant on there, that number's gonna go up probably by a lot. At least if you're thinking about moving to New Ulm, you'd certainly want to get on that list.
I
So,
see it as a way to keep Garden Terrace competitive with all the brand-new buildings that are being built, the rentals. Our
Makes
buildings
sense.
are 20 years old now. They're in great shape, but, people kind of like the shiny new
Yeah, yeah.
thing. And, this gives us something, it gives us an edge.
I certainly like to have more discussion on that. I'm keeping an eye on our time, too, and I really like number 2 and 3 as well. So if there's a way we could do all 3, I'd be really happy. Our owner-occupied rehab program, that kind of falls back into a little bit of city council's discussion a while back about blight homes, and if there was anything we could do to change that. Some of the homes, either where folks don't have the funds to paint their home or fix it up, and it's falling into disrepair based on either mental health concerns or financial concerns. So originally we were talking about creating a policy that would fine them or force them to make changes, and then that committee kind of said, well, maybe we need to move it over to the EDA, and is there a program we can put together where we could help those individuals to take care of that problem, and then put it on their property taxes, or just figure out a way that we would prorate it based on their income, but to fix up those 20-some homes or more that we have in our community that are in pretty bad shape. And some are abandoned homes, but some are not. And so I really like the idea when it was kind of pushed over to this committee to, at least for us, to take a look at it. So I hope that we would consider that. I don't know the details of that or how we would work that out. Maybe we need to find out what other communities are doing. And the third one, just my thoughts on that briefly, are when we had our community visioning program, the kids really talked about if they were going to live anywhere in our community, they want to live downtown above this apartment, above the businesses in the downtown area. A lot of those were rental properties. They're not anymore because of a lot of costs to get them up to speed. Could we do something in that area? I don't know. I guess that'd be an area I'd like to see us take a look at with this potential opportunities that we have in front of us. But it wouldn't have to necessarily just be those. But I would certainly like to see us focus on keeping our downtown active and having those smaller apartments, but rental availability in above our businesses downtown. But that's my quick 2 cents on this, but for discussion purposes today.
Right. Well, one thing too, a couple things I'd like to add. I think there are a lot of instances where there are other funding sources available. You know, if I look at the owner-occupied rehab program, we've applied for those grant funds. And I know sometimes those outside monies come with the strings attached. But I think going forward, as we consider these things, I think it's worthy of looking into and discussing the opportunities that we might have if we were to partner our funds with some of these outside funds, as provided that those strings don't make it prohibitive for us to use them locally as we see fit in some instances. Because I think if you look at the Federal Home Loan Bank funds, that's a grant. It's a 5-year forgivability sort of thing. So basically the homeowner has to stay in the home for the next 5 years. And I think in many instances that would probably work out just fine. So, you know, do we take and allocate some of those monies to match up and partner with that? Because I know when we go out and apply for grant funds, one of the first questions they always ask is, you know, how much skin do you have in the game? How much money are you willing to put in? And if we do those sorts of things, it makes our money go further. We can leverage it out and impact more people, hopefully. So that would be one of the considerations I think we should look into as we go forward, as we start developing these programs. Are there parallel programs out there that we could utilize that would help us to make our own money go further? And I do like to add a couple, I guess. I think a regular down payment assistance program with income eligible buyers, you know, outside of them being tenants at Garden Terrace would be something we'd want to look into too. Again, in the effort to promote workforce housing, I think if we perhaps went even to some of the local employers and see if we could seek funds locally from them, and we would be willing to match 1-for-1 or 2-for-1 any money they were willing to put in an effort to make it an attractive sort of package for a potential worker to come to town to say, hey, if you come to work in New Ulm, we've got this package of incentives for you for financing your home purchases too. That, you know, like a guy like Chris would be even more willing to come from California maybe, you know, in a deal like that. So anyway, I think that those kind of things are important. And I also want to keep the door open. Brian mentioned earlier about, you know, partnering with the EDC. You know, they're going through some changes, and I am a member and sitting on that board now. And I think that not only potentially purchasing the land, but going forward, if we could look at some partnering with funding, you know, with them on some economic and industrial development projects to kind of keep that door open as well. I think that could potentially be, again, using some of their money, some of our money. Together we can pool that money and maybe do more good than we could do trying to do it on our own. So those are my 2 cents worth recommendations as we move forward too with this. And I think this is a great thing. It's
okay.
great that it's we're ready to do this. So looking at the clock,
We have a lot of good ideas. I think we're not sure budgetary how much we have to do to be able to do all of them, but like you said, if we can partner with things to make funds go further, that would help, because there are a lot of good options here to help out the community. And I really do like the down payment program ideas, and rehabbing some of these places down, you know, rental properties throughout town and downtown area would be good.
And this is just a detail, and I'll just make it really fast here. We can say $10,000 down payment assistant. You don't, it doesn't have to be open-ended.
Right.
Absolutely
You know,
not,
You just
yeah.
allocate X money for this program, and when it runs out, it runs out. And then next year, you reallocate that program, and you
Yep.
help as many as you can in that respect. So it doesn't have to be like a fear factor, where you say, go like, oh, how much money is this gonna be? Are we gonna run out and all this other stuff? We can set it up so that it's just, here's how much money we have available, we'll see how many people we can help.
So can we ask Heather to bring us a little bit more information at the next meeting?
Yeah, I think Chris and I will put our heads together and
Sure.
come back with,
Not on all of them, that's a lot of work, but pick a few that you think are more manageable or whatever.
yeah. And it'll take some time, I think, to develop
Yep,
the policy
absolutely.
and flesh it out, and
Mhm.
so it may not, be ready to go and approved next month, but over the course of the next several months, I think we can get some things done.
But there's enough cities out there that have these programs that we can copy from. This isn't,
Oh, yeah.
we don't have to build this from scratch.
Exactly.
You know, I think we can go over to Mankato and have programs to look at.
Great discussion. All right, time's moving on. Thank you very much for all of your discussion. We do have item number 7 on the agenda for the economic development. From the Economic Development Director, Assistant City Manager regarding activities during the month of May 2018.
Excuse me. This has been a pretty exciting month. So I attended the New Ulm EDC meeting this month, their monthly meeting, and that was just hearing stuff that they were doing and possible plans for their future. Met with the Windings site rep and deed to talk about their possible relocation plans, and then later on in that month, met with the Windings VP to talk about their relocation plans and the incentives available to them. Met with Eric Bodie about the possible plans for Marktplatz Mall. Met with Brent Donner at DLC to talk about his relocation plan and all the incentives that will be available to him. Met with AMPI just to introduce myself to them and get acquainted with their operations. Met with Cindy Winters to talk about the Heart of New Ulm's and possible ways to keep that program running. And then was able to meet with deed reps to get information on state-run incentives, and that was a really good experience being able to have this, the state reps actually come out and want to talk to me and talk about their programs. Can't say I've had that experience ever outside of Minnesota. And then I met with the chamber to talk about economic development and kind of what their role will be and what they see their role moving on in the future, and then started the process on 3 EDA loans, 1 limited and the 2 rehab loans. And then on the housing side, attended a single-family housing development conference in St. Cloud with Heather, hosted by Minnesota Housing. Attended this meeting, attended the governor's housing task force up in Sleepy Eye. That was pretty good to see what the preliminary housing task force was putting together to bring forward to the governor, and then assisted Heather with the Federal Home Loan Bank application to get that submitted on time, also with Dan.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your report. I do not believe that we have a quorum, so therefore we cannot ask for a motion. Is that correct?
I think so.
No, well,
Can we,
how many are missing?
where's
We're
our
missing 'cause-
2,
parliamentarian?
3?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Les
3 to
snuck
3?
out on
I
us.
snuck out.
He had another meeting.
3 is
Not enough.
well, it's not a majority, so.
Yeah.
I think we can just receive it, but then we have enough to adjourn.
Yeah, let's receive it. And then would you just bring it back for next week, just for, or next month, to get it
Sure.
on the motion again? And
Sure.
I appreciate your report. It's very nice.
Thank you.
All right, since we have agenda, I am going to close this meeting. Unless there's any concerns? Nope. Meeting's closed. Thank you.
Thank you.